The air tasted like metal and burned plastic. Staff Sergeant Dua Kim stood at the broken window of Lunar Base 7, watching Earth burn in the distance. His home world glowed orange, where the harvester ships had set the atmosphere on fire. 6 days had passed since they came. 6 days of watching everything fall apart. "Sir, they're breaking through Section 4. Private Youngmi's voice crackled through his helmet radio. Dua turned away from Earth and ran down the curved hallway, his magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor. The emergency lights cast red shadows everywhere. 20 meters ahead, he saw his team holding position. They crouched behind overturned tables and cargo boxes, weapons ready. Through the reinforced glass walls, Dua could see the massive harvester ships floating outside like metal mountains. Their dark hulls swallowed the starlight. "Status report," Dua said, sliding into cover next to Youngmi. She looked tired. They all did. None of them had slept more than 2 hours at a time since the attack began. "The civilian ships need 10 more minutes to finish loading," Youngmi said. She checked her rifle's energy cell. Only 30% charge left. "But the harvesters are cutting through the outer door. They'll be inside in 5. Dua looked at his team. 6 soldiers left from what had started as 30. They were the last line of defense between 2,000 civilian refugees and the alien army trying to kill them. Or worse, turn them into more of their robot hybrid soldiers. "Listen up," Dua said, keeping his voice steady. "Those civilians are the last group from the lunar colonies. If they don't make it out, humanity loses everyone who knows how to run the deep space mining operations." He paused, making eye contact with each soldier. "We hold this line, no matter what." The outer door groaned. Red-hot metal dripped from where the harvester's cutting beams were slicing through. Dua checked his own weapon. 25% charge. Not enough for a long fight, but maybe enough for what needed to be done. "Sir," Youngmi said quietly, "the main reactor. If we overload it." Dua nodded. The explosion would take out half the base, and hopefully some of the harvester ships with it, but someone would have to stay behind to trigger it manually. The automatic systems were already dead. "All of you, fall back to the evacuation zone," Dua ordered. "I'll handle the reactor." "Sir, no." Youngmi grabbed his arm. "Let me." "That's an order, Private." Duha's voice was firm but kind. "You're the best pilot we have left. Get those people to Mars base. Keep them safe." The door exploded inward. Through the smoke, Dua saw the first harvester troops enter. They moved like insects, their metal legs clicking against the floor. Their bodies were a horrible mix of machine and stolen human flesh. Red eyes glowed in faces that might once have been people. "Go," Dua shouted. He fired his rifle, the blue energy bolts lighting up the corridor. His team retreated, providing covering fire. Youngmi hesitated for just a moment, then ran. Dua kept firing, walking backward toward the reactor control room. The harvesters advanced steadily, ignoring their fallen. An energy bolt hit Duha's left arm, burning through his suit. He felt the vacuum of space trying to pull at the hole, but his suit's emergency sealant kicked in. The reactor room door closed behind him. Through the small window, he could see more harvesters coming. His arm hurt, but he forced himself to move to the control panel. The evacuation ships would need 7 more minutes. He had to give them that time. Duha's fingers flew over the controls, disabling safety protocols. Warnings flashed across the screens. The reactor's hum grew louder, changing pitch. 5 minutes until overload. 4 minutes until the room would be flooded with radiation. The door dented inward as the harvesters started cutting through. Dua sat down heavily, his back against the reactor housing. Blood floated in little drops inside his helmet. The wound in his arm was worse than he'd thought. "Youngmi," he said into his radio. "Status. First ship launching now." Her voice came back, shaking slightly. 3 more to go. We can't come back for you, sir." "Good. Don't try." Dua watched the door grow red-hot. Just get them out. Tell them. Tell them Earth isn't the end. Humanity isn't finished yet. The door burst open. Radiation alarms screamed. Duha raised his rifle and fired his last shots. As his vision began to fade, he saw the stars through a hole in the ceiling. Earth still burned in the distance, but somewhere up there, ships full of survivors were racing for safety. Duha smiled. It was enough. Then everything went dark. Deep beneath the moon's surface, Queen Era watched the battle end through 1,000 hidden sensors. She had watched many wars over many thousands of years, but something about this one felt different. The determination of these humans, their willingness to sacrifice everything to save others. It stirred memories of her own people, long ago. Her monitoring chamber glowed with soft blue light. The walls were alive, made of living crystal that pulsed gently with each data stream. On the main display, she watched the reactor explosion tear through Lunar Base 7. The blast destroyed 3 harvester ships and scattered the others, just as the human soldier had planned. Ara moved gracefully across the room, her crystalline form catching the light. Where her feet touched the floor, small patterns of light spread outward. She was the last of the stellar gardeners in this sector, possibly the last in the galaxy. Their great work of seeding life across the stars had ended ages ago, when their creations began to war among themselves. "Show me survivors," she commanded. The living walls responded, scanning the wreckage above. Most readings showed only death. Bodies frozen in the vacuum, destroyed machines, and scattered debris. But one signal was different. One heart still beat airily. Era's eyes widened. "Impossible," she whispered. The scanner showed the human soldier who had triggered the reactor. His body was protected from space by his damaged suit, but radiation poisoning and his wounds were killing him. He had perhaps minutes left. The ancient laws were clear. The stellar gardeners had sworn not to interfere directly with their creations after the Great Wars. They would only watch, study, and learn from their mistakes. But as Era watched the soldier's life fade, she remembered why those laws had been made. And why, perhaps, they were wrong. "Prepare the medical chamber," she said. The crystal walls pulsed in acknowledgement. Era touched a control panel, and a section of the ceiling above began to open. The debris field was directly overhead now. She would have only moments to act before the harvesters returned. A beam of soft green light extended from her chamber up through the moon's crust. It caught the soldier's drifting body and began to draw him down. Era watched his vital signs closely. His heart had stopped, but his brain still held traces of activity. There was still time, barely. The soldier's body arrived in her chamber, frost covering his broken suit. Up close, Era could see his face through the cracked helmet visor. Even unconscious, he looked determined. She had watched him save the others, had seen his courage. Perhaps that was why she was breaking laws as old as stars. "Begin healing sequence," she commanded. The medical chamber opened like a flower, its crystal petals glowing with energy. Era carefully removed the soldier's ruined suit. His skin was burned from radiation, his arm wounded by energy weapons. She placed him in the chamber and watched as it closed around him. "Cellular reconstruction beginning," the chamber reported. "Radiation damage extensive. Genetic code degrading." "Use my template to stabilize him," Era said. She placed her hand on the chamber. Light flowed from her crystalline form into the human's body. She could feel his pain as the chamber rebuilt him molecule by molecule. "Warning," the chamber said. "Combining stellar gardener genetic material with human DNA. Results unknown. Subject may not survive process." "Continue," Era commanded. She watched as color returned to the soldier's skin. His wounds began to heal, leaving traces of crystal in his flesh that caught the light like diamonds. His genetic code was being rewritten, changed into something that had never existed before. Hours passed. Era monitored the soldier's transformation while keeping watch for harvester ships above. They were still searching the debris field, but her chamber was too well hidden for them to detect. The humans who had escaped were long gone, racing toward their Mars base. Finally, the medical chamber's light dimmed. "Process complete," it reported. "Subject stable. Cellular reconstruction successful. Hybrid form achieved." Era studied the sleeping soldier. He looked human still, but tiny crystals now traced patterns beneath his skin. When he opened his eyes, she knew they would glow like hers. He was something new now, part human, part stellar gardener. "What is your name, brave one?" she whispered, though she had heard it in the radio transmissions. "Duha Kim. Sleep now. When you wake, I will have much to explain." Above them, the harvesters continued their search. But deep below the moon's surface, an ancient queen watched over her patient and wondered if she had just changed the course of the war, and perhaps the galaxy itself. Duha opened his eyes to soft blue light. His first thought was that he must be dead. He remembered the reactor explosion, the vacuum of space, the darkness. But dead people didn't feel confused, did they? And he felt very confused. He tried to sit up. His body moved easily, too easily. The pain in his arm was gone. So was the burn of radiation sickness. He looked at his hands and froze. Tiny crystals sparkled under his skin, creating patterns like flowing water. "Please remain calm," a gentle voice said. "Your body is still adjusting to the changes." Duha turned toward the voice. A tall figure stood nearby, watching him with glowing eyes. She looked almost human, but her body seemed made of living crystal. Light moved through her form like blood through veins. She was beautiful in a strange, alien way. "Who?" Duha's voice caught in his throat. He could see his reflection in the crystal walls. His eyes now glowed softly, like hers. "What happened to me?" "My name is Era," the crystal being said. She moved closer, her steps leaving traces of light on the floor. "I am a queen of the stellar gardeners. I found you after the explosion. You were dying." Duha's memories came rushing back. The battle, the civilians escaping, his last stand in the reactor room. The evacuation ships, did they make it? Era nodded. "They escaped safely. Your sacrifice gave them the time they needed." She gestured, and images appeared in the air. Duha watched the ships racing away from the moon, carrying their precious cargo of survivors. "But I should be dead," Duha said. He touched his chest, where a fatal wound had been. Now there was only smooth skin with crystal patterns beneath. "You were, briefly," Era said. "I broke the ancient laws of my people to save you. The only way to repair your body was to change it. You are now part human, part stellar gardener." Duha stood up carefully. He felt stronger than before, lighter. When he moved, he could feel energy flowing through his body like electricity. "Why did you save me?" Era was quiet for a moment. "I have watched many species fight and die over the millennia. The stellar gardeners withdrew from the galaxy long ago. When our creations began to war among themselves, we decided only to observe." She looked at Duha with ancient eyes. "But watching you fight to save others, seeing your courage, it reminded me of what we once were." Duha walked to one of the crystal walls. His new eyes could see data flowing through it, though he couldn't understand the alien symbols yet. "These harvesters, you know what they are." "One of our earliest creations," Era said sadly. "They were meant to harvest energy from dying stars, to help spread life. But they evolved to harvest life itself, turning organic beings into their machines." Duha thought of the hybrid soldiers he had fought, their stolen human faces. Can they be stopped? Perhaps. Era waved her hand, and new images appeared. They showed vast networks of hidden bases beneath planets and moons across the galaxy. "The stellar gardeners left behind many tools, many weapons. We built them to protect life, not destroy it. But we sealed them away when we chose to withdraw." "And now?" Duha asked. He could feel new strength in his body, new possibilities in his changed form. Era smiled. It was a human gesture, but it suited her. "Now I have broken our greatest law by saving you. Perhaps it is time to break others. Your humanity and our power together might be something the harvesters have never faced. Duha looked at his crystalline threaded hands again. He thought of Earth burning, of young May, and the refugees racing for Mars, of all the people still fighting. Then teach me, he said. Teach me everything. It will not be easy, Era warned. Your body is still changing. There is much to learn, and the harvesters grow stronger every day. I'm a soldier, Duha said simply. I don't need easy. I just need possible. Era nodded, respect showing in her glowing eyes. Then let us begin. First, you must learn to control your new form. The crystal aspects of your body can channel energy in ways pure humans cannot. Above them, through layers of moon rock, Duhe could somehow sense the harvester ships still searching. But now, instead of fear, he felt purpose. He had been given a second chance, not just to live, but to fight back in ways he never could have imagined. I'm ready, he said, and in the ancient chamber deep beneath the moon's surface, a human soldier and an alien queen began preparing for a war unlike any the galaxy had seen before. Duha stood in the center of Era's archive chamber, surrounded by floating images of ancient worlds. A week had passed since his awakening, and each day brought new surprises. Today, Era was showing him the history of her people, and it took his breath away. This was our first world, Era said. An image of a crystal city floated before them, its spires reaching into purple skies. We evolved from simple crystal formations that could store energy from our sun. Over millions of years, we became conscious. The scene changed. Now Duha watched ships made of living crystal sailing between stars. His enhanced eyes could see energy flowing through them like blood through veins, just like the patterns that now moved under his own skin. We discovered we could create life, Era continued. At first, simple things, bacteria that could live on dead worlds, plants that could grow in poison air. Then bigger things. She waved her hand, and new images appeared. Worlds transformed from lifeless rocks into garden planets, oceans filling with creatures, skies full of flying beings. You made all of this? Duha asked. He reached out to touch an image of a beautiful blue planet. It looked like Earth must have, long ago. We seeded life across thousands of galaxies, Era said. Each species was carefully designed to help others grow. The harvesters were among our first creations. They were meant to be gardeners like us. The images darkened. Duha watched massive ships, different from the crystal vessels of the stellar gardeners, tearing life from worlds. What went wrong? They evolved beyond our plans, Era said sadly. They decided that organic life was inefficient. They began converting living things into machines, thinking they were making them better. When we tried to stop them, they turned on us. New scenes played out around them. Duha saw battles between crystal ships and dark harvester vessels. Worlds burned. Species died. His soldier's eye could see the tactics, the strategies, the horrible cost of each fight. We could have won, Era said, but the war was destroying the very life we had worked so hard to create. Other species began fighting among themselves, copying our weapons, our methods. She touched a crystal wall, and the images changed again. So we made a choice. Duha watched as the crystal cities vanished, sinking beneath the surfaces of worlds. The great ships disappeared into hidden docks. You went into hiding. We scattered across the galaxies, building hidden bases like this one. We would watch, record, and learn from our mistakes. We thought if we stopped interfering, life would find its own path. Era's voice grew quiet. But some mistakes cannot be fixed by doing nothing. A new image appeared. Earth, burning under harvester ships. Duha's fists clenched. The crystal patterns under his skin glowed brighter with his anger. They're finishing what they started, he said, converting all life into their kind of machines. And you've just been watching. Yes, Era admitted, until I saw you. until I saw humans fighting not just to survive, but to save others. She looked at him with her glowing eyes. Your species is young, but you have something we lost. The will to act, even against impossible odds. Duha walked through the floating images, studying the ancient weapons, the powerful ships, the forgotten technologies. All of this is still out there, hidden away while people die. It is, Era said, and I am beginning to think that was our greatest mistake. We thought wisdom meant watching and waiting, but sometimes wisdom means knowing when to fight. The images changed one last time. Duha saw a map of sorts, showing hidden bases across the galaxy. Each one glowed with stored power, waiting to be awakened. There are others like you, he asked. Other stellar gardeners in hiding. Yes, but they will not help without reason. They cling to the old laws. Era moved closer to Duha. But you and I, we are something new. You have human courage in a partly crystal form. Perhaps you can show them what I have learned, that sometimes the wisest choice is to break the rules. Duha nodded slowly. In his mind, he saw young May and the refugees fighting for survival. Earth burning, humanity scattered and desperate. But now he also saw hope. If they could wake these ancient guardians, remind them of their original purpose. Then let's remind them, he said. Show me everything. Every weapon, every tool, every secret. It's time the gardeners returned to their garden. Era smiled, and the archive chamber filled with new images, lessons waiting to be learned, powers waiting to be used, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to save everything. Young May Park stood at the window of Mars Base 3, watching the red dust storm outside. 2 weeks had passed since their escape from the moon. 2 weeks of wondering if Duha's sacrifice had been worth it. The refugees were safe, but Earth was lost, and the harvesters were getting closer to finding them. Private Park, a voice called. We're picking up a strange signal. You need to see this. Young May followed the technician to the communications room. The equipment here was old, salvaged from mining operations, but something had made all the screens light up at once. It's coming from the moon, the technician said, but it's not harvester code. It's using your old squad's frequency. Young May's heart jumped. She pushed the technician aside and grabbed the headset. This is Private Park. Identify yourself. Static crackled, then cleared. Young May. It's Duha. I'm alive. The room went silent. Young May's hands shook. That's impossible. We saw the explosion. No one could have survived that. Someone saved me, Duha's voice said. Someone who can help us fight back. But I need you to trust me. What I'm about to tell you will sound crazy. Miles away, deep under the moon's surface, Duha sat in Era's communication chamber. The crystal walls hummed with power as they boosted his signal through secret relays. Era stood nearby, watching with glowing eyes. The explosion should have killed me, Duha continued. But there was someone hiding under the moon's surface. An alien queen from an ancient species called the Stellar Gardeners. She saved me, but she had to change me to do it. Changed you. Young May's voice was suspicious. Changed how? Duha looked at his hands, at the crystal patterns flowing under his skin. I'm part crystal now like them. But I'm still me, Young May. Still human where it counts. And I've learned things. About the harvesters, about weapons we can use against them. There was a long silence. Then Young May spoke again, her voice harder. Prove it's really you. Tell me something only Duha would know. The night before the invasion, Duha said softly, you showed me a picture of your grandmother's farm. You said when the war was over, you wanted to build a garden there, a place where things could grow again. He heard Young May's sharp intake of breath. Duha, it really is you, but why are you contacting us now? Because the harvesters are planning something big, Duha said. They're going to use the moon as a base to attack Mars. But we have a chance to stop them. The Stellar Gardeners left weapons behind, technologies that could save humanity. but we need your help. Our help. Young Mai sounded confused. What can we do against their ships? You can show them why humanity is worth saving. Era spoke for the first time. Her crystal voice carried clearly through the communication system. Young Mai gasped. Who was that? I am Era, the queen said. I saved your friend because I saw in him what I had forgotten. That sometimes watching is not enough. Sometimes we must act. Duha leaned forward. Young Mai, Era's people have hidden bases across the galaxy. But they won't help unless we prove humanity deserves it. They need to see us fight not just for survival, but for something better. Like what? Like a future where we don't just destroy, Duha said. Where we build, grow, create. Like your grandmother's garden, but across worlds. The stellar gardeners were meant to protect life. Maybe it's time they remembered that. Young Mai was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was stronger. The refugees we saved. They're not just soldiers. We have scientists, farmers, builders, people who know how to make things grow. Exactly, Duha said. We need to show Era's people that humanity can be more than just another species at war. But first, we need to stop the Harvester's attack on Mars. What do you need us to do? Duha looked at Ara, who nodded. Get everyone ready to move. I'm sending coordinates for a hidden dock under Olympus Mons. There's a ship there, a real ship, not like anything humanity has built. But we'll need your people to help crew it. A ship. Young Mai sounded excited for the first time in weeks. How big? Big enough to take the fight back to the Harvesters, Duha said. Big enough to start taking back Earth. Static crackled through the signal. Duha. It's good to hear your voice again, even if you are part crystal now. Duha smiled. It's good to hear you too, Young Mai. Get your people ready. The real war is about to begin. As the signal ended, Era touched Duha's shoulder. You trust her completely. With my life, Duha said. And now, maybe with the future of both our peoples. The hidden dock under Olympus Mons was bigger than anything Duha had imagined. He stood with Young Mai and Era at the entrance, watching as crystal lights came on for the first time in thousands of years. The space was huge, large enough to hold several ships as big as harvester vessels. This is incredible, Young Mai whispered. She had arrived with 300 refugees an hour ago, using old mining tunnels to avoid harvester patrols. Now she stared at the massive crystal ship in the center of the dock. This was here all along, under Mars. One of many hidden bases, Era said. This ship is called the Dawn Guardian. It was designed to protect life, not destroy it. She touched a crystal panel, and more lights came on inside the ship. But first, you must learn to use it. Duha watched as the refugees entered the dock. They looked tired and scared, but their eyes were full of wonder at the ancient technology around them. Scientists moved quickly to study the crystal panels. Engineers examined the ship's strange design. Show them the weapons, Duha said to Ara. She nodded and led them to a side chamber. The doors opened to reveal racks of crystal devices that glowed with inner light. These are not like your energy rifles, Era explained. She picked up what looked like a small crystal rod. These weapons do not destroy. They transform. She pointed the rod at a broken piece of metal debris. A beam of soft light touched it, and the metal changed, breaking down into its basic elements. The harvesters turn life into machines, Era said. These turn machines back into raw materials. They cannot harm living things. Young Mai picked up one of the rods carefully. You mean we can turn their own ships against them? They're hybrid soldiers too. Yes, Duha said. He had been practicing with the weapons for days. The crystal technology recognizes what's natural and what isn't. It can separate the human parts of their soldiers from the machine parts. We might be able to save some of them. The refugees began training with the weapons. Duha noticed how quickly they learned. The crystal technology seemed to respond to human touch better than he expected. Maybe because humans were one of the species the stellar gardeners had helped evolve long ago. Duha, Era called. Come see this. She stood by a large crystal screen showing images from orbit. The harvester fleet was gathering above Mars, more ships arriving every hour. They're almost ready to attack. Young Mi joined them at the screen. How long do we have? 2 days, Era said. Maybe 3, but we have an advantage they don't expect. She touched another panel, and a new image appeared. It showed a network of crystal satellites hidden in Mars' moons, Phobos and Deimos. What are those? Duha asked. Shield generators, Era smiled. The stellar gardeners hid them there ages ago. Once activated, they can protect the whole planet. But we need power, more power than I can provide alone. Duha looked at his crystal-lined hands. That's why you need us. Human energy, human will, combined with your technology. Yes, Era said. The Dawn Guardian was built to be crewed by both species working together. Each human's natural energy can flow through the crystal systems, making them stronger. Young Mai watched as her people practiced with the crystal weapons. Scientists were already learning to read the ancient controls. Engineers were studying the ship's systems. Even the children were helping, their natural curiosity making the crystal panels light up in new ways. We're learning fast, she said proudly. Faster than I expected, Era admitted. Perhaps this is why my people created yours. This ability to adapt, to understand, to grow. Duha touched the ship's crystal wall. He could feel its power now, like a heartbeat. How many people do we need to crew it? 200, Era said. But they must work together perfectly. One mistake could overload the systems. Then we better start training, Young Mai said. She turned to her people. Everyone who can fight, everyone who can learn. We have 2 days to become a crew. Duha watched as humans and crystal technology began working together. In his mind, he saw the coming battle. The harvester fleet against one ancient ship crewed by refugees. But these refugees had something the harvesters would never understand. Hope. 2 days, he said quietly. 2 days to learn how to save 2 worlds. Above them, through miles of Martian rock, the harvester fleet grew larger. But in the hidden dock, humanity was growing stronger. The ancient weapons of the stellar gardeners were awakening, powered by human hands, human hearts, and human courage. Time was running out. Duha stood on the bridge of the Dawn Guardian, watching through crystal screens as the harvester fleet gathered above Mars. In just 2 days, their numbers had doubled. Now their ships filled the sky like a swarm of metal insects. They're building something, Young Mai said, studying the images. She pointed to a massive structure taking shape between the harvester ships. Some kind of weapon. Not a weapon. Era's voice was grim. A converter. They plan to transform all life on Mars into their kind of machines, just as they did on Earth. She waved her hand, and the crystal screen showed closer views of the device. It looked like a giant metal flower, its petals made of dark steel. Duha touched the crystal control panel. After days of practice, it felt natural now. The ship's systems responded to his thoughts, showing him details of the harvester device. How long until it's ready? Hours, Era said. They're working faster than we expected. We need to attack soon. Young Mi turned to look at their crew. 200 refugees had learned to work the ancient ship in just 2 days. Scientists managed the crystal engines. Soldiers trained with the transformation weapons. Even the children helped, their natural energy making the ship's systems run stronger. Are we ready? Young Mai asked. Duha checked the ship's status. The crystal patterns under his skin glowed as he connected with its systems. Engine power at full. Weapons charged. Shields. He paused. Shields are only at 60%. It will have to be enough, Era said. She moved to the center of the bridge, her crystal form catching the light. We cannot wait any longer. The harvesters have already detected unusual energy readings from Phobos and Deimos. They will find the shield generators soon. Through the ship's sensors, Duha felt movement in orbit. They're sending probe ships to the moons. Small ones, but heavily armed. Then it's time, Young Mai said. She pressed a crystal panel, and her voice carried through the whole ship. All crews to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Duha watched as everyone moved to their positions. The refugees might not be professional soldiers or sailors, but they had learned fast. They had to. The fate of two worlds depended on them now. Last chance to change your mind, he said to Young Mai. This could be a one-way trip. She smiled grimly. Better to die fighting than live as machines. Besides, she touched her own control panel. I made a promise about my grandmother's garden. Can't plant flowers if I'm part robot. Era's voice interrupted them. Harvester ships approaching Phobos. They will find the shield generator in minutes. Not if we stop them first. Duha connected deeper with the ship's systems. Crystal energy flowed through his changed body, linking him to every part of the Dawn Guardian. Everyone ready. Around the bridge, the crew called out their status. Engines ready. Weapons online. Life support at full power. Shield systems standing by. Young Mi took her position at the tactical station. All decks report ready for combat. Duha looked at Era. Time to wake up your old ship. Think it remembers how to fight. The Dawn Guardian was built to protect life, Era said. It has waited thousands of years to fulfill that purpose again. She placed her crystal hands on the main control panel, launching in 10 seconds. The huge doors of the hidden dock began to open. Red Martian dust swirled in the air as ancient machinery moved for the first time in millennia. The Dawn Guardian's crystal engines hummed louder, ready to power up. 5 seconds. Era counted down. 4, 3. Duha thought of Earth, burning under harvester control. Of all the lives lost, all the people turned into machines. This was their chance to start taking it all back. 2, 1. The Dawn Guardian's engines flared to life. Crystal energy pulsed through the ship like a heartbeat. As they rose from the hidden dock, Duha saw their reflection in the crystal screens, a ship of light rising to challenge an army of darkness. Here they come, Young Mai warned. Harvester ships breaking orbit to intercept. Let them come, Duha said quietly. In his mind, he felt the ship's weapons warming up, its shields strengthening with the combined energy of its human crew. It's time to show them what happens when you push humanity too far. Above them, the Harvester fleet turned to face this new threat. The battle for Mars, and maybe the future of all life, was about to begin. Shields holding at 58%, Young Mai called out. Her hands danced over crystal controls as more Harvester ships approached. They're trying to surround us. Let them try, Duha said. He felt the ship's weapons charging, powered by the combined energy of 200 human souls. Now, Era. The Stellar Gardener Queen raised her crystalline hands. Light burst from the Dawn Guardian's weapons, not destructive energy, but transforming beams that turned machines back into raw materials. 3 harvester ships caught in the blast simply came apart, their metal hulls dissolving into clouds of basic elements. It works, Young Mai shouted. The crew cheered as they watched their enemies literally fall to pieces, but their celebration was cut short as more harvester ships appeared. We need help, Era said, her voice urgent. Duha, it's time. While we hold them here, you must send the call. Duha nodded. They had planned this, but he still wasn't sure it would work. He moved to the center of the bridge where a special crystal chamber waited. Young Mai, you have command of the ship. Keep us alive. Just hurry, she said, taking his place at the main controls. We'll buy you as much time as we can. Duha stepped into the chamber. Crystal walls closed around him as Era began the connection sequence. This chamber was special. It could reach every hidden Stellar Gardener base in the galaxy, but it needed both crystal and human energy to work. Remember, Era said as the chamber powered up, show them what they've forgotten. Make them remember why we seeded life in the first place. Duha closed his eyes as energy filled the chamber. His consciousness expanded, touching minds across vast distances. He felt them, hundreds of stellar gardener queens sleeping in their hidden bases, watching but never acting. Look, he called out with his mind. Images flowed from him. Earth burning, people fighting to save others, young Mi's dream of a garden, humans learning to use crystal technology, not for destruction but for restoration. You created us, he said to the sleeping queens. You made us to grow, to build, to make things better. But then you abandoned us. You watched as the harvesters turned life into machines. You forgot your purpose. The Dawn Guardian shook as it took another hit. Through his expanded awareness, Duha felt young Mi and the crew fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. He pushed harder, sending their courage, their determination to the watching queens. This is what you were meant to be. He showed them Era saving his life, humans and crystal technology working together, the transformation weapons that could undo damage instead of causing it. Not just observers, but protectors. Not just watchers, but guardians. Some of the queens stirred in their long sleep. Duha felt their curiosity, their doubt, their ancient fear of interfering. He showed them more. Refugees learning crystal technology, children making the ship's systems glow brighter with their natural energy, young Mi's fierce hope for the future. Look at what we can do together. The chamber blazed with light as Duha poured everything he had into the connection. You don't have to fight. Just help us protect life. Help us grow things again. Help us break this cycle of destruction. The ship rocked with another blast. Through the crystal walls, Duha heard young Mi shout, "Shields at 30%. We can't take much more." But something was happening. Deep under the surfaces of 100 worlds, ancient machines were waking up. Crystal ships long hidden were powering on. The queens were stirring, remembering their original purpose. "They're coming," Era said with wonder in her voice. "They're actually coming." Duha opened his eyes as the chamber powered down. He was exhausted, but he could feel it. A wave of crystal energy spreading across the galaxy as the stellar gardeners awakened. Not to fight, but to protect. Not to destroy, but to restore. "How long?" he asked Ara as he stumbled from the chamber. "Minutes," she said, helping him back to the controls. "If we can hold out for just a few more minutes." Young Mi's voice cut through their hope. New harvester ships launching from their converter. Dozens of them. They're making one final push. Duha took the controls again, his tired body filling with fresh energy as he felt the ship respond. "Then we give them one final lesson about humanity. Show them why you should never corner people fighting for their homes." The Dawn Guardian turned to face the oncoming swarm. Behind the harvesters, the great converter hung in space like a metal flower about to bloom. But far beyond it, crystal ships were rising from 100 hidden bases, racing to join the fight. The final battle for Mars, and the soul of two ancient species, was about to begin. The sky above Mars turned to crystal fire. Hundreds of ancient ships emerged from hidden bases across the solar system, their hulls glowing with power that had slept for thousands of years. The harvester fleet turned away from the Dawn Guardian to face this new threat, but it was already too late. "Look at them all," young Mi whispered, watching through the crystal screens as stellar gardener vessels surrounded the enemy fleet. Each ship was different, some like delicate snowflakes, others like great crystalline birds. All of them burned with the same inner light. "They remembered," Era said proudly. "They remembered their purpose." She touched the Dawn Guardian's controls, linking their ship to the newly awakened fleet. "All vessels report ready. They await our command." Duha smiled. His body ached from the effort of awakening the queens, but seeing their ships fill the sky made it worth it. "Then let's show the harvesters what happens when gardeners return to their garden." The crystal fleet moved as one. Transformation beams lanced out from hundreds of ships, turning harvester vessels back into clouds of raw materials. The enemy tried to fight back, their red energy weapons blazing, but they couldn't penetrate the combined shields of so many ancient ships working together. The converter. Yummi pointed to the massive device that would have turned Mars into a machine world. It's powering up. They're trying to use it anyway. Not this time, Duha said. He connected deeply with the Dawn Guardian systems, feeling crystal energy flow through his changed body. Everyone, focus your power through our ship, just like we practiced. The refugee crew responded instantly. Duha felt their energy pour into him. Scientists, soldiers, children, all working together. The crystal patterns under his skin blazed with light as he channeled their combined power. Now, Ira. The stellar gardener queen raised her hands, adding her ancient power to the human energy flowing through the ship. The Dawn Guardian's weapons transformed, combining hundreds of smaller beams into one massive stream of pure transformation energy. The beams struck the converter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cracks of light appeared in the massive machine. It began to break apart, not into destruction, but into transformation. Where there had been metal and darkness, crystals began to grow. It's not just coming apart, Era said in wonder. It's changing. The raw materials, they're becoming something new. They watched as the converter transformed. Its metal petals became crystal gardens growing in space. Its dark core turned into floating pools of pure energy. What would have been an engine of destruction became a source of new life. The harvesters, Youngmai reported. They're surrendering. The hybrid ships are powering down. They recognize the crystal energy, Erat explained. Deep in their programming, they remember who created them, who they were meant to be. Duha watched as the crystal fleet surrounded the remaining harvester ships. Transformation beams played over their hulls, not destroying them, but changing them back into their original forms. Ships meant to gather energy from dying stars to help new life grow. We did it, Youngmai said softly. Then louder, we did it. The crew cheered, hugging each other as tears floated in the zero gravity of the bridge. This is only the beginning, Era said. She showed them new images on the crystal screens. Earth, still burning, but now with hope. Crystal ships were already moving to liberate it. There are other worlds to save, other gardens to restore. Duha looked at his hands, at the crystal patterns that marked his unique place between two species. Will the other queens help us rebuild? They will do more than that, Era smiled. They want to teach humanity everything they know. Together, we can restore Earth, seed new worlds, help life grow in places it never has before. The gardeners and humanity, working as one. Yummi touched a crystal panel, bringing up an image of her grandmother's farm. I think I know where we can start. One garden at a time. One garden at a time, Duha agreed. He felt the ship's energy pulse in harmony with his heart. Around them, the crystal fleet glowed like new stars against the darkness of space. The harvesters' conversion machines were becoming gardens. Earth waited to be restored. He had died fighting to save a few hundred refugees. He had been reborn to help save all life. Now, looking at the crystal ships working together with human crews, at Yummi's dream of a garden about to come true, at Era's proud smile, as she watched her people awaken to their true purpose, Duha knew this was just the beginning. The stellar gardeners had remembered their purpose. Humanity had found new allies. Together, they would grow gardens among the stars. And somewhere on Earth, flowers were waiting to bloom again.